We had the most perfect plan, and now we've been Scrooged. Anyway, Shanghaied, if you will.
3 ball from CG43. They're in front.
This is flat out ridiculous.
From a beautiful left hand, in and out finish, the old-fashioned way.
Newell gets to the basket with one to come. From there again. You have got to be kidding me. Tyson step, wraps it up.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the NBL Pocket Podcast, Tuesday, 14th of November, 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. Joe Core here, Andrew Canyon over there. Topics. What are we talking about? We're talking about commentary. We're talking about Alex Tui. We're talking about Denzel Valentine. The firing at the Hawks. Jackomas out. Justin Robinson. Foul counts. Aaron Baines is getting a once-over in this one.
Okay.
Hutchinson and the SEN drama. You're going to fill in the people, Canyon. I know you're not ready, but we didn't prepare people. What can I tell you? Who's a bigger pretender? We're going to give you two teams. We're going to come Canada. And then Kings versus United. Big preview of what's happening this week. Andrew Canyon, how you doing?
Yeah, Joe, good. Good, mate. That was a great intro. How are we going to cover all of this content in
Quickly,
the short period of time that we have?
In typical fashion with this podcast, shabbily and ill-preparedly.
It's fine. That's what the people want. So, we're off the cuff, just firing from the hip. That's what we do around these parts, the NBL Pocket Podcast these days.
Yeah. I'd like to think we're not NBL insiders. Depends.
No.
Inside of who and how deep would be my question, but hard to say.
You're in Sydney and I'm in Perth, so we are hundreds of kilometres away from Melbourne. So we're clearly not insiders.
No, you can't be. No, but we're going to do our darndest. Canyon, you got the list in front of you. You sent it to me. By the way, you sent me this list. I was shocked. I said, I don't know what we're going to talk about. And then you come up with like 6 or 8 things, and they're all fantastic. Where do you want to start?
I got you, man. Let's start with the big news, the big sacking. Mm-hmm. We got to start there. Everybody else is starting there in their podcasts, so we need to do the same. So I had, in my early notes that I sent to you, I had a question to you, and I said, do you sack Justin Robinson, Jacob Jackomas, or both?
And we got our answer before I could even answer.
He has been. Jacob is well and truly sacked. Thanks very much for coming. I liked it.
I liked in the announcement. It's like mutually part ways. Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, you know what? I didn't really want to coach anyway. You know, this once in a lifetime opportunity in a league with 10 teams. I'm good. I'm okay. I just want to leave with a 1-35 record or whatever it is. Would that have been your answer? You asked the question, who's first to go, Jackomas or Robinson? Are you surprised? Is this the right calculation by the Hawks? Would you have done the same?
Yes, my appetite for blood is currently sated. We have seen Jackomas. That's who I would have gone with first. I think Robinson, he's a talent. They just need to figure out how to unlock him. This guy's borderline NBA, right? So he looked good last year before getting injured. He hung around all last season. At first, last year I thought that was because he was so committed to the team. Now I'm thinking he realized that he is not that great a player and maybe he was just getting the free healthcare. So maybe that's why he stuck around. But whatever the reason, he's back again for another season. You've invested this much time and effort in him. So hang on to Justin Robinson. At least he can score some points. Jacob cannot score points, so you get rid of him.
And here's the difference with Jackomas for me. The team lost in a different fashion week to week. One week they put up 110 and get beaten, out of a lack of poise late. Other times they just couldn't score. Other times they'd play pretty good defense but not be able to score. They just never lost. It'd be different if they just were like Brisbane and they played well for 3 quarters and then toppled at the end. You're like, okay, I know what they do and I know where they fall short. This team was just total potluck game to game. There was no clear strategy. And he asked this question, was Jackomas out of his depth? I think he was.
Yeah, I think so. I think the only reason he got the job in the first place is because he was kind of like the little mascot for Brian Goorjian.
Yeah. He was just there.
Hung by his side for so long. It was like, okay. Goorjian's gone.
It's like that Jerry Seinfeld joke where it's like, that's why the groom and the groomsman all wear the same outfit, because if one gets cold feet, you just
slide one over.
That's Jackomas. He was just kind of like, he was just there.
I mean, you can't honestly tell me that he was the next best candidate in Australia for that coaching gig.
you can't look me. I wouldn't look you in the face and say that.
No. So
could you look into my bedroom eyes and say that? No,
not that. I could say other things, Joe, but I couldn't say that.
What about these Gleeson rumors? Do you buy them at all?
Nah. Why would Trevor want
zero chance.
Why would you go to this team at this point in time? What's to be gained from it?
Nothing.
No.
It's
They're going to
the
struggle.
Rumors, okay, let's talk about the moves. So the Gleeson thing. If Gleeson would have coached this team, I don't know what I'd do. I will climb the Sydney Opera House butt naked. It's ridiculous that he would coach this team. Can I ask you this, though? What do you think about the new hire or the next assistant up?
Apparently, he's the dad of Jason Tatum. I've got that on got that from the NBL. So
that looks good in a tweet, but the guy's they've hired a guy with zero coaching experience.
I think he's coached high school or something, hasn't he? So, yeah, crazy. I mean, is that honestly the best they can do? Is there not an NBL 1 team in that region that they could, go over there and say, hey, have you got any coaches floating around that we could borrow?
We'll throw out some names, right? Like Simon Mitchell.
Yeah.
Decent, he's not John Wooden, but he's coached the league, won 50% of his games. Good coach, available.
Sure.
So how lengthy this search was. Here's my next question: is this guy going to see out the season?
Oh God, depends how much money they've got and how much they've spent.
Got no money, man. He's going to see out the season. They've got no money. This is now, other than Gorgon, which was a bit of a dodgy deal. It's just been the next assistant up. It was Matt Flynn. It was Jackomas. Now it's this guy. What's his name? Tatum. Justin, is it? God, we don't even know. Tatum Senior. When he wins some games,
Jason Tatum's dad.
You win some games, I'll learn your name. That's a promise. But until such a time. So it's just the next assistant. They've got no money. And because if they had money, they wouldn't have just got rid of Jackomas without a hire ready. Yeah. And I think also if they had a good coach coming in and they said to Jackomas, listen, we were a bit premature in your promotion. Would you want to be assistant under such and such? And that's a bit of a jagged pill to swallow, but I don't think Jackomas, to his credit, never really carried a great ego. I did have a certain respect for him stepping into the Brian Gorgon vacuum. I mean, a lot of people would shy from that. He did it. There's a certain pat on the head there, I suppose.
Yep. So, look, he probably will never get another crack at the NBL again. No, but good job, mate. Like, you've done more than what any of us have done. So, yeah, hats off to you.
You were there. He didn't sabotage the team and they were hurt. And the roster's not good.
No.
The roster's not good.
No.
So let's go to Justin Robinson, though. I just want to say, Justin Robinson, before this happened, I would have said, well, I'd be looking at cutting him. If they just had a decent amount of money, salary, I would have cut. I'm not seeing it. I'm not getting it. He's erratic. Combining him with Harvey, I don't get it. He has a similar effective field goal percentage to Bawali Bales. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I don't see it. I don't see it. And, you say, a bit of NBA cred. Remember that guy who played for Cairns, Donta Hall or Devon Hall?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Remember him? He had NBA cred. Yeah, my skirt is not blown up. I'm sorry. Moving on. Where do you want to go next?
Okay, well, let's just quickly touch on Perth because that's probably the other news going around. I want to talk about back office Perth, first of all, ownership. News article today out of the Sydney Morning Herald, I believe.
I'm going to phrase it this way. Fill people in. Give them the Craig David. Fill me in.
Okay, so
older viewers.
So you'll have heard astute listeners will have heard the SEN, owners of the Wildcats, and the SEG, Sports Entertainment Group, the listed vehicle under which the ownership falls, has been having some debt issues of recent times. Apparently now they are basically they're in breach of their covenant with the Commonwealth Bank. So essentially the Commonwealth Bank lent them a big chunk of money and it's time for them to pay it back, and they don't have the capacity to pay that money back. So they are relying on the good graces of the Commonwealth Bank and its desire to see any of its money back from them over the long term, that maybe they won't call on that. They need a cash injection. They're looking for angel investors, high net worth individuals, a little bit of angel funding coming through. Basically, they need cash and they need it fast.
They need either drug runners or Mr. Beast, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And if I look at this organisation and their listed vehicle on the stock exchange, and I look at it and I say, Andrew Kenyon, would you put your hard-earned money into this business? You could choose you can invest in anything on that stock market. You can put capital anywhere you want. Is this where you want to put it? Are you going to get a return? And my answer, Joe Core, is not on your Nelly.
Is that an expression? Not on your Nelly? I don't think so. But I know what you said.
I would not put money into this business because I have no confidence that I would ever see it back again, let alone get a return on that investment. Man, oh man, no.
The author who wrote this was a Callum Jaspan. So who wrote that article. I want to give people their just credit. 3 things from the article really hit me. Number one is it's the crazy acquisitions that Hutchinson and SEN have made. Netball teams that have notoriously done poorly. None of them made any sense on paper. And they were kind of like monopoly buys. They just made no sense. The second thing I took from this is actually breaking away from this conversation, but it described netball and basketball as participation-heavy sports that perhaps haven't crossed into the professional sector. It's a real departure from what we're talking about, but I thought about that and I was like, wow, yeah. Basketball is this huge participation sport that hasn't necessarily equated to dollars and cents at the professional level, the NBL, in Australia, I mean, at the NBL level.
So often it's been the problem for forever, basically.
Forever. Yeah. It's never been able to capitalize on this. And I thought about that and I thought, and I'm still pausing about it thinking, how can the NBL be more involved at the participation level and generate money that way? And maybe that's not I don't think that's very enticing to a Larry Kesselman to do that. But then again, did acquire the NBL 1, which is, sort of semi-professional, basically participation. So maybe there's money been made there. But yeah, going back to what we're talking about, honestly, the other thing as well, I saw Hutchinson at the Melbourne game where Perth won that one. Great win for Perth. He looked unwell. He looked heavier than I've seen him in the past.
Yes, I agree.
He was a horrible pallor, and I thought that's not the look of a man who's happy in business. I mean, he did just get a $1.5 million bonus despite the company losing $9.4 million over the last financial year, but whatever. But he didn't look well, and these are all bad metrics, wouldn't you say, Kenyon?
That's a very good point. It looks like a man under considerable stress. And sometimes when you're under stress, you overeat, don't you? You have an extra scoop of ice cream. And I think that's...
Okay. Yeah, I suppose you're right. Kenyon, let's move on. Actually, what does it spell for the Wildcats in your estimation?
Well, what it spells for it means that they're not going to change their coach. They're not going to change any players because cash is tight, my friend. So this is the team they've got for the rest of the season. It looks like they've somewhat sorted it out from the crisis meeting position we were in last time we spoke. They've done that by reducing the amount of Webster on the court, which is quite a good thing.
Corey Webster, isn't it crazy? I think in the last 3 games he had 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and then I think went DMP against Melbourne.
Yeah, like he doesn't play defense. But ironically, if I had to have Webster presence on my court, I would actually take Corey ahead of Ty. I don't know what's going on there.
I disagree. It's a weird thing where I think they need Ty Webster. Who else is going to play that spot?
No, maybe you do a bit of Bryce Cotton.
Maybe, but you need to relieve him of those. Cotton's playing major minutes. You need to relieve that ball handling duty and pressure.
They could bring Zunic on off the bench.
I'm not. I just haven't seen enough to have any confidence in him. I think Ty Webster in a very certain role. I haven't hated it. And listen, one thing good about him is he actually rebounds well and pushes the pace. And over the last 3 games, has been willing to give it to Cotton and kind of get out of the way a little bit and get him scores. I haven't hated that. Ty Webster, it's been peculiar, but I haven't hated it. Corey Webster was empty carbs, false carbs even, where he was just, scored a few points that looked okay, but ultimately the ball was coming out of Cotton's hands and his scores were not as damaging, impactful, high percentage as Cotton. And, well, all I can point to is they've won 3 in a row and Corey Webster hasn't played. Now, whether that's all on Corey Webster's play or just the sort of way the fives have broken down. The other thing is they do typically end the game. Their top 5 is a lineup of Cotton, Doolittle, Alex Sarr kind of, but I'm getting lost here.
Yeah, Sarr/Pinder.
Wagstaff, who am I forgetting? Usher, and another big guy. And all they've really done is secured the rebounding count. I think they've won the last 3 rebound counts. And it's embarrassing for really that this is the stuff people were saying the whole time, and now it's been proven that they actually have the roster to do it. Before there was, this roster's not very good, but we gave them the over in the over-under estimations because the roster's capable. So as much as, yes, the success is good on John Riley, it's still kind of like it took you this long to figure. It took a 3-game losing streak to work it out.
The one thing he hasn't figured out yet is how to get Ben Henschel in a court time. And
Wow.
I want to like, a little bit of conversation we had is around whether Ben Henschel could do what Alex Tui is doing for the Kings if given an opportunity, given that they played on the same team, the Centre of Excellence sort of situation last year. And Henschel, by all accounts, was playing better than Tui. And now all of a sudden Tui's being pushed as this amazing new talent in the Australian basketball
We're gonna talk
landscape.
about that.
And Ben Henschel just sitting there saying, well, maybe I could be that too if I just was allowed to step onto the hardwood.
I know,
Joe,
and this is where,
thoughts?
I've got some thoughts. First of all, I've often thought, does good media really matter? And, some guys have an inside lane with, depending upon who their agent is. And it's so interesting signing players in this country. There's really only one agency you can sign with that's really got any cachet. So to tell people out there, and I'm probably saying stuff people already know, but you used to have what was Lighthouse Sports, now Octagon Sports, Daniel Moldovan. And then you had Mogul Sports, I want to say, out of South Africa, South Australia, which kind of has Creek and a few others. I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
And then you've got your sort of smaller, like a David Wolf who used to do stuff with the Kings. I believe he has a few players. If I'm speaking out of turn, they can contact me at any time, but they won't. But only one kind of has an inside lane at ESPN to get good coverage. And the others, and you had Harry Froling, I think was in Mogul Sports. Remember when he was going to go to the NBA and they forgot what year he was draft eligible and had to fly him over at the last minute? Do you remember that from 2 or 3 years ago?
Right.
So it's things like that where you're like, oh, wow, there really is only one agent in town who's got his eyes open, and that's Moldovan. And that's who Tui's with, and it shows. And, he has presence enough to put guys in a good position, but then also make sure that it happens. I mean, remember when Josh Giddey signed in Adelaide and he was coming off the bench to Donald Sloan? It lasted one game before the receiver was ringing off the hook down at the 36ers HQ, I'm sure. So, yeah, and Henschel, this is the thing, and a bit of a rant as well. Sorry to do it to you, Kenyon, but people look at James Harden, who said these things about going to the Clippers and, I am the system and all that, and it looks selfish, and it was. But this is the problem. You go to a team where your coach doesn't believe in you, and your career's ruined. I mean, Henschel, you only get a chance to show off your skills, get scouted and get drafted between the ages of, 18 and 20, 21, and then you're no longer draft eligible. So you either get your window or you don't. And Henschel's has been snapped shut for not a reason of his play, just circumstance. So
I'd love to know what's going on the training court that is preventing him from getting court time in games, because the one time we saw him in any capacity, he did really well. So who knows what's going on? What deficiency is he showing at training that's preventing him from getting court time?
John really just seems to swing like a pendulum do, and 1 minute it's this roster and the next it's this, and it's Jesse Wagstaff not playing at all to 25 minutes and closing out and starting games. So, I don't think really he's got that stay the course kind of, Vickham and put your shell on and just, tunnel down, head down, bum up type mentality. I think he's got a very, erratic approach. So, I feel bad for him because, you're only that age once, and that's when you get your press. And it just looks bad for, if you're an NBL next star, it's a good deal. But if you're an NBL development player, you're better off going to college, a US college, and playing in a second division or a first. But then you look at Jack White, who went to Duke and, missed his window the opposite direction, went to Duke, got recruited over the top of by Zion Williamson. Now he's banging out in the G League when he's more than good enough for the to be on a bench somewhere in the NBA. So, a roundabout answer is I don't know. Where do you want to go next?
First.
We don't know. Oh dear. So that would be our every moment matters. We don't know.
Okay.
We don't pretend to.
Okay, I want to ping another topic at you. Okay, so we saw. I want to refer back to last weekend's games. We had another throwdown.
Yes.
And we had Southeast Melbourne Phoenix probably feeling pretty good about themselves, thinking they'd come in and take care of business against Melbourne United.
Melbourne United. Sans what? Travers.
sans Dellavedova, sans almost Huckporty, and sans in Clark.
That's their three. That's certainly their best player. Two of their top five.
Yeah, and good old Southeast Melbourne Phoenix.
The little brother.
The one.
The record's like 17-5 now.
You can always rely on them to not quite be good enough when it really matters. And once again, they weren't quite good enough.
Golding went off. I mean, nothing. You could hear the waves crashing in Melbourne when you have a throwdown and Chris Golding plays really well. I mean, and I felt good. I was like, yep, that's what the people of Melbourne want. They want to see Chris Golding do well in a throwdown. Melbourne. It was all their good things. And I'm happy for them.
They should have flown Scottie Pippen out for this game, seriously.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Get like Craig Hodges, who else could you have got from that Bulls bench? John Paxson, Bill Cartwright, Bill Wennington.
But yeah, I just think, what a Southeast Melbourne Phoenix playing at? They couldn't win that. The moment Chris Golding hit that shot from almost half court.
Yeah, that was a great shot.
Right in their eye. That was just like game over. That's done. Cooked. Great game.
Their confidence was broken.
Yep.
It was fun. That was a really good game. Can I ask you this question? Who's a bigger pretender, Southeast Melbourne or Perth?
Ooh, interesting.
You want my answer, or you want to?
Oh, I think I'd say Perth is a bigger pretender.
I disagree.
Okay.
Only simple cotton factor.
Fair enough.
Southeast Melbourne, just those two import guards, I like them, but just too inconsistent for mine. Whereas Bryce Cotton, you just if you play through Bryce Cotton, you're gonna win between 15 and 18 games, no matter who, with a bit of talent or with the right talent around him, or even just the wrong talent but playing the right way around him. You're gonna get to that win total. He was amazing.
There was a lot of chatter earlier about Mitch Creek as MVP candidate, and they were looking at his numbers and how good he was. He was invisible in the second half of that game.
He was, and he does say he fades in and out of games, and I worry about fatigue levels with him because he's so strong. He is massive, and he's in great shape. But I don't know. He floated out of games in the last couple of years under Smitch. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I just think I think he might be. He's not a guy I can rely on. I don't want to be so harsh as to call him a front runner because I don't think he's that. But he's not the guy where I think, we've got Mitch Creek, he can take us to the promised land. He just doesn't. He doesn't have that confidence.
And he doesn't have that little bag of 3 or 4 go-to moves to break a guy down one-on-one. He just doesn't have that.
No,
I like his game. I feel like I'm rubbishing Mitch Creek. I do really like his game, and I heard him in interviews talking about the green and gold and playing for the Boomers and how he's been snubbed terribly for that, and sat out of squads when players way worse than him are getting a go.
Yep.
So he's a good player, but I agree. There's just this element that I'm thirsting for, but I'm still thirsty.
Well, you've given me a bit of a segue there because players who are not as good as Mitch Creek but have played for the Boomers. One of those you could argue is Nathan Sobey.
Mm-hmm. The other's Aaron Baines.
The other is Aaron Baines. So I've got
this is an interesting. Yeah, this question for me. You threw me off here, but sorry.
So this is a question I put to you in my notes over the last few days. I wanted to ask you whether I suggested Nathan Sobey, but on consideration, it might be more Aaron Baines. But are either one of them the NBL's Ewing Theory candidate?
Better for people at home. What's Ewing Theory?
So the Ewing Theory is a theory. It was developed by somebody else. I can't remember his name, but it was popularized by Bill Simmons with the NBA, basically around Patrick Ewing, and the theory being that a team is actually better when their star player is unavailable. So it was called the Ewing Theory because Patrick Ewing, storied player, obviously the best player on the Knicks team for so long. But when he didn't play, the New York Knicks performed better. And so here you've got the situation of you've got Brisbane Bullets, and they seem to play well with Aaron Baines. They strung some wins together when he wasn't on the court. But then also Nathan Sobey, he tends to play a bit of hero ball sometimes and shoots them out of games. And I sort of wonder, that was my thinking with Nathan Sobey, is would they be better off perhaps without him on the court? as good as he is.
Yeah, and this is a different conversation for the NBL where, what does a Brisbane spend with a 5,000-seat arena, I've liked Sobey this year. I disagreed with the Sobey thing. What do you think? Is Nathan Sobey a Ewing Theory candidate in your mind?
Well, I guess the challenge is we saw a bit of Brisbane last season without Sobey, and they weren't great.
Oh, terrible.
So he is back this year. So it's probably unfair to put Nathan Sobey in that bracket. And when I was thinking about this, I was getting frustrated with his hero ball antics. And
I don't mind that.
Okay.
I think because they're a real grinded out offense, real grinded out defense, to be honest, as well. But I think that it's nice to just be able to say, okay, late shot clock, we're just going to Sobey. And he's willing to just wear 10 misses. There's a lot of guys who would preserve their field goal percentage, not take those shots. I see your point, but I think his deficiencies are exaggerated in this instance. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so what about Aaron Baines?
100%. I didn't like Baines in that game at all. I thought he was getting picked apart in pick and roll. It's hard to tell because it was Adams. We're going to talk about this. This is going to launch into another topic, but Baines for me is a Ewing Theory candidate. I just can't defend pick and roll, and basketball now is the pick and roll, especially the NBL, especially the NBA, but also the NBL. He was just so slow off. A guy would come off, and I was watching it so intently. I was like, what is he going to blitz? Is he going to drops? Is he going to whatever? And there was just so much room and space to move around. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the game has passed him by. Now, he sort of stuffs up the Ewing Theory a little bit because I don't think he is the best player on that team, and that kind of is the point of the Ewing Theory is that Patrick Ewing was the best player. He's the most credentialed player on that team.
Sure.
And I think they looked so much better when they had Tyrell Harrison starting, and then they would have Zakarski coming off the bench with a bit of youthful exuberance. And I just think it's better. I think Baines, he's heavy and he's plodding and he wants his shots, and his shots are usually pretty ugly.
Hit one big three. What's funny is he's Brisbane's number one performer in PER, but also 8th in win shares. I don't know if we put a lot of faith in these stats, pardon me. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you there. And Harrison fouling out was a death sentence. I saw him foul out. I thought, and then they had a couple of timeouts. I thought, they're going to bring Baines back, but they went small and it didn't work either. They just choked. They choked that game so bad. That was a massive choke. All of them, like Baines, everyone working in tandem to screw that one up.
Yep.
So, but no, Baines. But my other criticism of Baines is head's not the game. He is chasing. He gave away an offensive pick. An offensive screen foul. It was so egregious.
Yep. And
sort of chased it down and was arguing it. It's like, man, that is ridiculous that you know what you did. But was looking to bump into guys and was just, I don't know. He's got a real chip on his shoulder this season. I don't like it. And it's affecting his play. I'll say it. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, something's not right. Something is not right.
Basketball is not bringing him joy, would be my estimation.
Yeah, it's a shame, but it is what it is.
Is what it is. Now, staying with that kind of, and we talked about Alex Tui before, but so the Kings came back and beat Brisbane. I think they went on a 15-0 scoring run in the last minute and a half or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And this one's, is this a rap on the snout for Olgun Ulich? I don't think so. I just want to say it. But so after that game, that game was an amazing comeback by the Kings, really instigated by two guys. Jalen Adams, particular, just came off pick and roll. You couldn't stop him. And then DJ Ho came up with that steal, come up with a couple of scores, and one I remember that was a bit touchy, bit soft, but
big time.
That was there, big time shots, big. One step back through it was massive. That was the story of the game. Mm-hmm. And then also the other story of the game was Baines being bizarre, couldn't guard pick and roll, looking for a fight.
Yep.
And all the talk out of the game was like Alex Tui, some weird stat plucked out of the Clippers, just plucked out of nowhere about plus 27 on the court. Boy, NBA. I got a sour taste in my mouth. I'm like, you have not watched the game. You're not giving the game and the players who played best their day in court. You're not giving. You're not. Court being not court, hardwood court. And I had a sour taste in my mouth. I was like, does every game have to be an instrument in development.
Yeah, it's like career development.
And agencies, players and stuff.
Storyline, yeah.
That's just our taste. My DMs are open if anyone's got an issue. What do you think of that? And then it just doubled down and down. I was like, oh, and it highlights a bigger problem for me in the NBL. And we're going to talk about this, just the NBL, the state of it. This thing of, is it a development league? How do people support a development league? You know, guys like Cotton and that, I feel, get so little credit. It's hard to, the main storyline of the NBL isn't who's the best players and which teams are winning. It's all this other BS, and I don't know. Not for me.
Like I said to you a couple of weeks ago when we were talking, the whole next star thing is getting out of control. It's all about just the next stars. You know, this is the big promo piece for the league, and I think it's undermining it as a competition in its own right, because it's all just about what's this 20-year-old kid going to become in the future, and can we say, oh, he stamped his passport in the NBL before he went to the NBA or what have you, and that therefore validates our existence. And I think I think you're exactly right. It's an insult to all the players who are playing it, professional men who are playing in this competition, you know, to make it as good as it can be. And it's all just about these young kids.
Do you think it makes commercial sense? Because I look at it and I go, I don't want to give my credentials, but I've looked at the numbers on when you just write an NBL article about ... But when you tie it to some NBA thing, Google algorithm, SEO, pushes it out, gets a bit more read. So I can understand why everybody does this. It gets reads from the casual, but I think it's empty calves. You know, I've used that a couple of times now, but I don't think it sells you tickets at the gate. And this is where there's huge fracture between NBL HQ, basketball media in Australia, and then teams selling tickets. I don't think talking about Alex Tui as an NBA prospect gets people through the turnstile at Kudos Bank Arena. Having said that, their attendances have been fantastic. But, you know, okay, there's an ex-star in Adelaide. Does that get people through the turnstile? Yeah. Not really. There's one in Illawarra, isn't there? They just sacked their coach and they're on a massive losing streak and they can't fill out a stadium that holds 13,000 people. Sorry, 1,500 people on deck chairs. So
yeah, and there's one in Perth who's been now projected by one guy as being the number one pick.
A guy who I like Sam Vecini. But a guy who's based in Australia, you know, it's
The NBL's creaming themselves over it, but it hasn't affected Perth Wildcats attendance. If anything, it's gone down.
It's gone down.
Perth fans don't want to see an X-Star. Like, it's a nice add-on, but they want to see a team play well and win.
So I think there's a room for both, but I just think the mix is off. And when it comes after something so palpable, where you see that game and you're like, oh, Hogan Adams. And then it's all this Tui talk off a strange stat when I didn't even know Tui was on the court in the last 5 minutes. Didn't see him. Didn't do anything that I could tell. Maybe I'm wrong, but I really can't recall. So, you know, that's where I'm at with it. And I don't know. This is, sour taste.
You know what? This is probably the only podcast you'll hear talking about the NBL, which is not necessarily talking about next stars in glowing terms. So there you go.
Let's jump to something else. Let's talk about a star import who's just not doing it for my eye. We did cut the import last week. We spoke about this guy. I gave a wishy-washy answer. Now I'm saying Kings have got troubles. Denzel Valentine, crystal ball, Canyon. Does he see out the season in Sydney?
Let's see. I don't see a place for him now that DJ Hogue has come back and is playing so well. Like Valentine early on was hitting those threes. Now DJ Hogue's taking and hitting those shots. Where does that leave him?
I'll say this much. Here, the good and the bad, as I see it. The Kings are second on the ladder, 7 wins, 3 losses. Valentine, have a guess at his numbers. Points, rebounds, and percentage from the field. How many points per game?
12.
10. Okay. Percentage from the field?
38.
42. Okay. Rebounds?
4.
4 on the money. Well done. Guess how many foul shots? This is my favorite thing. You know, I did this with that guy from Southeast Melbourne a couple of years ago. What was his name? Went a whole season without going to the foul line. Can't remember it. Guess how many foul shots? He had 2. Denzel Valentine had 2 against Brisbane. Guess how many foul shots in total this season? This is a starter.
5.
More than that, it's 10.
Okay.
8 of 10. To put that in perspective, his own teammate, Angus Glover, has attempted just as many free throws in 110 less minutes. This is a wing player.
That's 2.5 games.
That's 2.5 whole games. And I'll say this, the Kings are tied 7th. So we're not first, second, 7th in free throw attempts per game, despite being the number 1 in pace. So they shoot a lot, they attack a lot, but they don't get to the line. And for me, when the shot doesn't fall, the foul line is critical. There's no, other than a layup, the foul line is the next easiest shot. I'm a big believer in it. Canyon, does this guy see out the season?
They need to get themselves a big, beefy power forward, I reckon.
I think they just need, something at the hoop a bit more.
Yep.
Because Adams is a bit undersized and doesn't really like to go all the way to the rack. Loves a little stop, dribble, shoulder the guy a little bit and lean back runner, which goes for him. Tui's not a sort of off attack the dribble, attack the basket type guy, a little bit slower. Valentine the same. Hogue, more of an outside threat. Outside of Glover, I'm like, who really, and Galloway a little bit, who really attacks who's going at the rack?
Really only Geordie Hunter. And he's
Jordan Hunter,
yeah, and maybe a bit of Quite Noy, but he doesn't mind. He doesn't mind a 3-point shot either. So
he's an outside guy. So I'm like, who in a game that gets broken down and you need a little your Cleveland type players that they had last year.
Yeah,
or was it Justin Simon? They Justin Simon.
Simon, yeah.
Justin Simon, that player who was an attack the hoop. Okay, I'm going to the line now. Calm down, have a chat. Takes 2. It's very critical to my eye. They don't have it. So, Valentine and the Kings. Do you think the Kings are thinking the same way we are? Or are they like, no, we're 7-3. We're doing good.
No. I think they're probably thinking that way because they've got a couple of wins, but they could easily be like have a few extra losses if things just hadn't quite broken their way. That Sean Bruce 3 a couple of weeks ago. This game here against Brisbane, they're sneaking through, but they're not doing enough. Like if you think about playoff style basketball, where it grinds down, gets more intense, those open threes aren't there quite so often. Yeah, they could be in trouble.
Can I ask you this? They're travelling to Melbourne to take on United. That's Sunday at 4:00, John Cain Arena.
Game of the round.
I think they're no hope to win that one. Do you agree?
The way that Melbourne have been playing, and presuming they get 1 or 2 of their guys back, they got no hope. Melbourne are going to take that.
And I wanted to bring this up here. I mean, so the Kings have 7 wins. They've been beating up on the Hawks, Breakers, 36ers, and Bullets. Every good team they've lost to, they've played. I think the only sort of, if you want to say good team they've beaten is Perth. But they've lost to Tasmania. They lost to Cairns. I think at home, or was it away? I think it was away. But they haven't been tested by... Well, they've lost to Tasmania, but they haven't played your Melbournes. They haven't played...
Phoenix.
Well, really, that's... Yeah, Phoenix. They play... But here's the thing. Their next 3 are at Melbourne, at Perth, at Cairns. I could see a 3-game skid, and I actually think it's the best thing for them.
Yeah, it would force a move, wouldn't it?
Force a move, or just force hang on, we're actually not that good. Maybe some more Bolden minutes. It could actually be a calibration that they need. I think they're going to be a good team to watch. And I feel like I'm dumping on the Kings. I like their team, who couldn't. They're second on the ladder. But Couvert, this will be the true measure of them now, coming into these 3 games. I want to talk speaking about foul line and the foul count. This has been all chat on Twitter. Too many fouls in the NBL. What do you think?
Well, yeah, there's been a lot of fouls. I've actually been watching a lot of games on replay. So not live, but recording and watching.
So you skip them.
I'm able to fast forward through a fair bit of the old free throws. But there's a lot of free throws.
One game was sort of 52 free throws. What was that low-scoring game? I think it was Melbourne. I think it was Phoenix-Melbourne. Melbourne United and Phoenix in the throwdown where it shot a combined 55 free throws or something.
It's a lot.
And that wasn't an aberration. That's quite common. So it's not attractive.
When they show them on replay, so often the fouls are there.
The fouls are there.
This is where the players need to adjust. But I don't think I think the coaches are just like, let's just keep fouling. Let's force these referees to call them.
I 100% agree. I think people are being really unfair on the refs. And yes, they call a lot, but they do, other than that bad game, Melbourne-Perth, they call it pretty much the same. And I say this line, yes, the referees are fleas, but there are fleas, and that's just how it is. They're part of it.
Yep.
And yeah, I agree. The fouls have been there. And this is unfortunately what happens when, you get a product where you've got a couple of athletic players and then the rest aren't. And the equalizer is just playing this pounded up D. And when you've got a decent number of fouls, 5 fouls in 10-minute quarter, 10-minute quarters, guys are just banging and crashing. And I think at a point the whole league has to look at itself and go, we're in a contract year TV-wise. These games where people are just going to the foul line the whole time, this is shit.
Yeah.
This is, sorry for the language, this is unattractive. And at what point do you go, we're actually just going to play a style that's good for the casual and just good for basketball? It's a gentleman's agreement.
That last game with Perth, New Zealand, there actually weren't a lot of fouls in that game. There was very few. And it was attractive. It was fun to watch. It was up and down. That needs to be the blueprint.
I have the same assessment.
They finished early. They had to do like four or five post-game interviews. They didn't know what to do with the extra time.
There you go.
That game was fast.
Should have just got the commentators to shoot free throws. Free throw, little game of horse or something. Speaking of the commentators, I don't know if we've got anything else on your rundown. This is the last thing I've got at. The league put out a questionnaire about commentary, and people have come back and forth. It came up a lot. I think there was a tweet about Adam Silver, NBA, had said that, our commentators need to do a better job of communicating the game and making every regular season game worthwhile. Where's your mind at from a product standpoint with the commentary? Are you critical of it? We kind of touched on it last week, but I don't know.
I'm highly critical of it. I am not enjoying the commentary at all this season. Sorry?
No, no, me neither really, but I interrupted. Please, what?
It's too. They're either spruiking a sponsorship, talking about next stars, or talking about how Leonard Copeland and Andrew Gaze used to play together 25 years ago. They're basically the three consistent conversations we get.
Yeah.
The only time it gets the commentary gets interesting is when you get guys like Trevor Gleeson who actually know what they're talking about and can analyze a game and provide some insight. John Casey is good because he's a professional commentator, so he kind of can keep a show moving along. Jack Heveron's very good at deferring and keeping everybody involved.
Jack Heveron's like a pseudo Casey.
Yeah, he's very good at getting everybody to have a little turn at the mic. He is excellent at that.
Yeah, very good at that. Yeah, I concur.
Really good compare. But yeah, if you want to know about what these teams are doing and what counters they're running and how they're defending and how they're responding to what the opposition's doing, really you've got Trevor Gleeson, and that's about it this season. And
I think that a lot of people were critical of they interview someone and talk over the game. And I think that has been really successful in the USA, where guys come in, they kind of do their own podcast for 6 minutes of the 10-minute quarter.
Yep.
And then when play happens, they jump out. That's been hugely successful in the USA. So they've clearly cross-planted it over here. The whole Pippen thing, that was the start of it. The Paul McAfee show in the US, if people want to look into this. And I actually get that for the casual fan. I really do. I mean, ideally what you'd want to do is have like your hardo commentary where it's just nuts and bolts and Gleason and Gorge and just minutiae of the game. Yep. And then one that's just chit-chat. That's like an ideal world. I don't know if that's possible or not, to have two streams.
Yeah.
But the other thing I'll say is this, like with Leonard Copeland, I just haven't enjoyed him in commentary. I hope he's doing well, but I can only speak to my experience. And the thing that I find it peculiar is the NBL, you've got to see outside, look beyond the fingers, Patch Adams, look beyond your experience. Who is the growth market for the NBL? And it should be every kid under 18, right? That should be where you're looking to grow, maybe the women sector of it, right?
Yep.
And to bring in a commentator who, I think Copeland's got like 2,500 Instagram followers or something. To me, I'm like, not enough. You're not bringing enough to the table. You can't spruik our game. Corey spruiked the game in the league at every turn. He was always overwrought at doing it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what the job demands. And I just, that's where Felix von Hoff, Channel 10, Bachelor, okay, I get it. I totally funnel the game through him to the casual. He can reel people in. He's an attractive guy, Bachelor, bring in that crowd, bring him in. But to then just bring in a friend of Gazers and Gazer, I'm just not getting it anymore. I'm not. And what does a kid of 12 who has no concept of either of those two players, let alone the Melbourne Tigers themselves, where's that connection? I don't know.
And they spend the whole time talking about what they used to do. It's like, we don't care anymore.
Nobody cares, man.
We've heard it all before and we don't care.
and it degrades the product that's being played out, which is probably better than it was anyway. Let's not get around. These players don't get worse. So it's that sort of stuff. I have a whole list of things I could talk about, but we've given out ideas in this pod. They've been promptly stolen and performed upon poorly. I'm keeping those in my pocket. Thank you, Canyon.
It is the NBL Pocket Podcast.
That's right. And the pocket's got a button, and I give these ideas, but you don't pay me enough. So I'll keep them for myself and I'll pitch them to hockey clubs or something. I don't give a shit. Whoever's paying the most. Whoever loves me, I love them back.
I love you, Joe.
Oh, well, yeah. I owe half the Patreon money. We're going to blow that up the wall somewhere.
Speaking of Patreons, I want to say a big shout out, thank you to those who continue to contribute to the podcast.
It's really swell.
I recognise that your dollar value is not going so far because we're doing it fortnightly now. So, your money is only buying half as much as it used to, but it's appreciated twice as much. So thank you.
Hey, nice. You just thought of that then, didn't you?
I did. It just rolled off the tongue.
Yeah.
Pretty proud of that.
Thank you, patrons. Do appreciate it. Yeah, we've said this before. They don't get a lot of bang for their buck, but we do appreciate it. And that money just keeps welling up. We've never touched it. Who knows? Who knows what we'll do with it? But maybe something spectacular. Or we'll just split in half and put it in our bank account. Throw on a big mattress.
We're going to buy a share. We're going to buy a few shares in the sports entertainment group.
Okay, that's what we'll do. When that goes bust, we'll buy it. And it'll be like King Ralph. We'll just run up and down the office with balls of tape. Oh, dear. Mate, like turn Jared Wheatley into a butler. Mate, gaze, sit on my lap, tell me what he wants for Christmas, and then not get it for him. Oh, dear.
Oh,
what
boy.
a fun show.
We better cut this off before it gets out of order.
We love those guys. We talk a bit of shite, but we like everyone. All right, Canyon. Well, everyone out there, thank you again for listening. Follow and subscribe, so on and so forth. Twitter at NBL Pocket Pod is me. X at NBL Pocket Pod. I'm on Threads, or the show is on Threads. We don't put anything up, but if you could follow that would be the best outcome for the show is we do nothing and everyone joins the Patreon and the Twitter and they just go to hundreds of thousands of followers for no work. That's what we're gunning for. Progress is slow. Yep. Canyon's on Mastodon.
Yeah, at Canyon at social.lol.
Oh, God.
You love it.
And the Discord. Jump on in there. People are having fun. Discord's I occasionally pop my head in there. You're on there all the time.
All the time. Got nothing else to do.
Thanks, Canyon. This was fun, as always.
You're most welcome. We'll see you again in a fortnight.